This is the 46 of 46 Podcast Summit Sessions, where we'll talk all things Adirondack, backcountry, and beyond. From high peak stories and adventures to trail tips and tricks, we'll dive deep into the heart of these mountains and the people who passionately climb them. Adirondack maps and spruce traps to bushwhacks and backpacks. It's all here on the 46 of 46 Summit Sessions. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 46 of 46 podcast. I hope you're having a fantastic summer. I am super excited about today's summit session. I have a guest who is a personal friend of mine who I have been in this podcast game with since the beginning. We formed a friendship because we both have outdoors podcasts that center around hiking and our own little niches of that world of hiking. And I eventually said, one of these days you're going to get to the Adirondacks and then we'll do an episode. Well, she is here right now. Not only is she in the ADK, she's literally here in my studio right now to do an episode with me. Her name is Julie Jester Gayheart. Her trail name is Jester. She has a podcast called Jester Section Hiker Podcast, which is all about shining the spotlight on Appalachian Trail section hiking. She is almost 2 rounds, yes, 2 rounds through sectioning the Appalachian Trail. She lives down in North Carolina. She is a school teacher, and what does she do every summer? She gets in her van and she goes and has adventures. And this summer, it took her up here to the Adirondack Park, where she finally got to experience the mountains that we all love. Julie, welcome. I am so excited that you're here. Welcome to the 46 of 46 podcast.
James, I cannot hardly stand it. I am in the shed quarters.
You are. How do you like it?
So awesome. It's so awesome to be here. I've been here just a little over a week, and the only 2 words that I have, holy cow. Mm-hmm. This hiking in the Adirondacks is a whole new beast than what I'm used to. I've hiked out west. I've been on the Wonderland Trail. I've been in Yosemite National Park. I've been to Zion. I've done tons of hiking in the Smokies, Western North Carolina. I've completed the Appalachian Trail, and I'm almost done with it twice. And nothing that I have been on yet compares to what I've done in the Adirondacks. And I have only been on the small boys, the low mountains. So I don't even know the terminology. I'm still trying to learn the terminology in the Adirondack Park. And I don't even know if I've even touched the surface of what could be done here. And I'm here because I wanted to meet you in person.
I'm honored that you're here. It's exciting that you're finally here. And like I said, we go back. Since pretty much I started this podcast, we started a conversation. There's like me and a couple other people that are all in this little like hiking podcast world. Only a couple of us are still here doing it, but you are one of them. So I have nothing but respect and admiration for you. But I'm super happy that you finally made it and that you can see with your own eyes this like weird thing that people are obsessed with up here that I've talked about and you've heard on my own show for so long, and you got to finally experience it. You've been going through the Lake Placid Niner. For people to have some context, she's been hiking the Lake Placid Niner. She's got 2 mountains left, Catamount and Bear Den. So far, she's had an absolutely fantastic assortment of Adirondack hiking. And in terms of the high peaks, like you went up Pitch Off, you went up Hurricane. So you've actually done similar mountains in terms of size and scope. But yeah, the high peaks are an entirely different animal as well. But I hope that we get to go on a hike at some point up the high peaks, because I know you're about to leave town to continue your adventure. But before we even get into, what your trip's been here, why you're here, give us just a little background on yourself. How'd you get into the outdoors? How'd you get into podcasting? And then like, obviously the AT is like, that's your world. So give us a little background on yourself. You're also the first person on this podcast with a Southern accent, I should say. I don't think anyone has ever heard a Southern accent here on the 4646 podcast. So kudos to you.
Along with my Southern accent, every single place that I have been in Lake Placid, around Lake Placid, if I start talking, the first thing out of someone's mouth is, "Where are you from?" And when I say North Carolina, they go, "Oh yeah, So that has been quite the treat because, I don't see myself as someone that grew up in Ohio, if you can believe that, with a strong Southern accent. But here it is. To answer your question, I'm going to try to make a very long story short. I am like you have 3 little girls. So I grew up in a family. It was 3 girls, my dad. And for some reason, I became the tomboy and I'm a daddy's girl. And growing up, my dad was a fisherman. He always wanted to be outside, and we had this camper truck. And whenever my dad went, I was in the car. And as a kid, I just remember my dad talking about the Appalachian Trail. And anything on like the Discovery Channel, if something came along in a magazine, my dad would always, say, hey, look at this. This is really cool. Let's watch this program about the Appalachian Trail. And somewhere in high school or maybe early college years, in my mind, I just decided I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. I didn't know how. I didn't know exactly where it was, that it went through 14 states. I just made it up in my mind in my late teens, early 20s, I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. So in the early 2000s, I was actually a very heavy smoker, heavy drinker, and the Charlotte Marathon went right by my house. And I vowed that year to quit smoking, stop drinking, and train myself to run the Charlotte Marathon. And I did. And then after that, I met some friends that like to do trail running. So I started trail running. And I met some girlfriends of mine that I conned into hiking a section of the Appalachian Trail. And we were everything you could think of. We had no clue what we were doing. We went to an outfitter. We said, what section of the trail should we do? I laid my credit card down. I bought everything the guy said we needed to buy. And that was my beginning journey on the Appalachian Trail in 2006. So I break my Appalachian Trail first completion from 2006, and I finally finished in 2017 into a third, and a third. So the first third, I was in love with the trail. I was going to eat the dirt. I was going to do anything I could to be on the Appalachian Trail. And then the second third was, I could start piecing these miles together. And then I got more strategic about it, started like making spreadsheets and learning Excel and all this kind of stuff that I needed to track my mileage. And then the last third was, I've got to get this done. So in the meanwhile, I started inviting friends and family out to the trail, started doing sections over and over again. And when I finished the first time, I realized, I think I've got a lot of miles here where I could, as you would say, start a second round. And so that's where we are now. I should have never added those miles up. So back in early 2019, a gentleman by the name of Steve Adams, or Mighty Blue, who owns the Hiking Radio Network, he and I connected on the Appalachian Trail, and he said, you should really start a podcast about section hiking. Because he didn't really know what it was, and he himself had completed the Appalachian Trail. I said, how do you not know what a section hiker is? It's somebody that works, it lives a regular life and doesn't quit their job and doesn't go out on the trail for 6 months at a time. They go on their vacation, they go on weekends, they go whenever they can, but they're still out there completing this long distance hike. So in 2019, right around the time you started your podcast, I started the Jester Section Hiker Podcast on the Hiking Radio Network. And here we are.
Here we are. Let me ask you something. So for people who don't know, why would anyone know? Julie is a client of mine. I coach her to help her get in shape for the mountains.
Yes.
How have we been working together for 6 months, and I'm only now hearing that you ran a marathon in your life? I've run
more than one. That was just the first one.
You literally have never told me that ever. That's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. I don't know how in all of our conversations and calls, you've never mentioned that to me.
I've actually done a 50K as well. I probably shouldn't mention that either. So before I started,
I don't even know you.
Yeah,
Julie.
I know. Before I started hiking, I was trail running, and I just decided, I was faster hiking than I actually was running. So it only made sense to me. I just literally stopped running and totally focused on the hiking. But the reason I am here is I actually wanted to meet you in person and shake your hand because you have literally changed my life with your program that you have called Seek to Do More. And I'm just going to go ahead and go into the backstory. In 2021, I had a major injury to my foot, my right foot. And what was supposed to be a very, hey, we're going to go in and we're going to clean this tendon up, turned into a 3-year nightmare. And so I had one surgery. It went bad. So I had to find another surgeon, found a wonderful surgeon. He fixed my foot. But in the meanwhile, after you have a couple surgeries on your foot, you need a lot of therapy or physical therapy. You're not allowed to do, things you love to do. And I gained weight and I got out of shape. And this past December, 2023, I went in my hiking room. Everybody has a hiking room, right?
Of course. Mine's like a corner of my garage.
Yeah. It's probably growing. And I put on my hiking clothes and they didn't fit. I was busted out of my shirt. I laid on the bed to button my pants and I was literally disgusted with myself. And I remember a picture that you put on your personal Instagram page of what you looked like 10 years ago versus what you look like now. And I found that very interesting. And I remembered that at the very afternoon of the morning that I tried on my hiking clothes and they didn't fit anymore, I saw a post from you that said, hey, listen, if you're looking to lose weight, change your life, get in shape, send me a DM. And so I sent you a DM and I was scared to death. I was like, oh my God, here I am with this hiking podcast, and people are used to listening to episodes from me and I'm hiking the Appalachian Trail and my whole life has crumbled. And that's what I thought when I DM'd you. I thought, man, he's going to think I am like the biggest loser. So I don't know.
Not at all. But you sent a DM and here we are. So, by taking action, you actually said, no, I'm going to put a change to this. And I can understand, the feeling of, you do this hiking podcast, like this is what people know you as. What if you're not out there doing that? It kind of, it makes you feel like maybe you're not worthy of being on the microphone, telling these stories. But I'm glad you did. It's been awesome working with you and getting to know you on a more personal level. And you've done a fantastic job. You've lost over your backpack weight off your body. What a difference that makes when you're backpacking. Am I right?
Yes, 100%. And I was thinking about that even today. So I've been up Mount Van Hoevenberg 4 times.
You said it right. It's taken a while to get her to pronounce Mount Van Hoevenberg correctly, but you did it. Great job. Proud of you. Proud of you.
The first time I went up was with you.
Yep.
And a couple other ladies that are also following the Seek to Do More program. And that is one thing that I want to say. So over these last 6 months, you and I have known each other since 2019, but the relationship that I have with you now is far beyond the mic. It's life-changing, it's literal, and you guys, you and the Seek to Do More ladies, some of the ladies that I've met, from the minute I drove into the Adirondack Park, you guys have engulfed me. Sarah Williams, immediately the evening we rolled in, she brought me a map of the park. It started going over like landmarks and helping me get sort of the lay of the land. The very next day, I met Shane and Diane, and holy cow, those women. I don't think I've ever hiked with women that they're just so powerful. They're just such powerful hikers. And they believe in this Seek to Do More program. And the last 7 days have just been a pure treat. That's the one way I can put it. And I know you've been working and various things going on in your life. We haven't connected as much on the trail probably as we've wanted to, but holy cow. I have not been by myself on a Lake Placid Niner. Mm-hmm. I think the first one I went up with Sarah was Cobble Hill. And now that I've been on some other ones, that one's probably the easiest one that I've been on. And then we went up Mount Van Hoevenberg. And last Saturday, we went up Mount Hoevenberg. Then we went and did Baxter Mountain. Then we went and did Big Crow. And then we did Mount Joe. And those ladies were ready to keep going after Mount Joe. And I was like, ladies, my legs are like Gumby. There's just no way. But that was one of the best days in all of my hiking that I've ever had on the trail, because I was just so exhilarated I'm not used to high peak. And I know those aren't high peaks, whatever you want to call them, low peak hiking. I mean, for the time you leave the car, it is on until we get to the top. In North Carolina, we have, 40 peaks that are over 6,000 feet, but it's not this style of hiking. Like, as soon as you get out of the car, straight up. The only thing that reminds me of this at all is Maine that I've been on.
Yeah. And actually it's funny because the mountains that you hiked with here in the Lake Placid Niner, those mountains you do just like start going up. But when you get into the high peaks, which is actually what most people's complaints are, it's like you have a long approach to get to every mountain. And people are like, oh my God, I wish I could just go hike this mountain, but it's 5 miles to get to the base of it. Then you go up, then you come down, then you got the 5 miles back. So it's funny that you say that, because in the high peaks, and if you look at the map right above you, you can see it, but there's 2 mountains that you just like park at the base of. Every other one, long approach to get in. So it's funny that you say that. I hope
maybe I'm used to a long approach is what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Well, I mean, most of the high peaks here, that's kind of what the experience is, but it's been awesome seeing you experience these mountains for the first time and the different kind of hiking culture that is here. So you talk about Shane and Diane and Sarah. They are mountain goats. They're fantastic hikers.
Total mountain goats. And Diane, she came back for more. So after that Saturday, I was like, ooh, I got to rest. She came back and we did Hurricane and Pitch Off. Hurricane, I loved. I knew we were going to a fire tower. Absolutely loved it. And we saw probably 5 or 6 people on Hurricane, but Pitch Off is the one that almost broke me.
Let's dive into that a little bit, because I have purposely not asked you many questions. So like, obviously I already knew about the hike. I knew about the thing because of our group thread and whatnot, but I didn't ask you questions because I knew we'd be doing a podcast about your experience in the ADK. So what was it about Pitch Off? And I also didn't even ask Diane, what was it about Pitch Off that, was so difficult or made you, because I know you had some moments where you had to get kind of coached by Diane to not turn around, but let's keep going. Well, what was it?
I think, number one, this is different kind of hiking. It's almost like, I don't want people to think this is bad because it's absolute when I say this, but I just describe it as you're climbing up in a rock trough with, roots and rocks and you grab onto the roots, you step up on the rocks, but it's not like a clearly defined path. And with Pitch Off, we had just done Hurricane, which was, I think, 7 miles, 6.8 or 7 miles round trip, got in the car, went over, started Pitch Off. And from the highway there, 73, it just goes. I mean, you climb those steps and you are going up. And I was like, holy cow. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I need to eat some more. And Diane was like, no, it's going to be all right. I said, Diane, this just went up from the street. Like there was no like, hey, let's casually walk in here and see what's going on. And you do end up on some single track trail. And then what I've learned on the 7 mountains I've been on, which is minuscule, when you get to the base of the climb, it's just very evident that, okay, here are the rocks and here we go. So when we got to the base of that climb, I'm good with being on rocks and step ups, but we came to 2 little parts where it was ledges, and I'm not good with ledges. I'm just not. And it seems now that we went up Pitch Off and came back down, the ledges were nothing. But I just got to a point in my mind where I'm not going to climb up another ledge where I don't know where to put my foot. And then just everything, we climbed the first ledge and I was like, all right, take a deep breath, say nothing. You're going to be fine. We're done. It was only one ledge. Then there was another ledge. And then I was just like, what are you doing? This is idiotic. What if you fall? What if you hurt your foot again? It's like a movie played very fast in my mind. Like, you did all this work and now you're on this rock ledge. What are you doing? That's really what went through my mind. But I got up the rock ledge and then I hollered up to Diane. I said, I'm not doing this if there's another one. Mm-hmm. And then Diane was like, what? I said, I'm not doing this if there's another one of those ledges that we just came up. I just not confident. I don't know where to put my foot. I feel like I'm going to fall backwards. And maybe like 10 steps later, Diane was like, all right, let's just sit down and take a break. And so we sat down, took a break, did the obvious, ate, drank, talked it through. And she was like, you can do whatever you want. This is your hike. If you want to go back, we'll go back. I'm not going to say anything. This is no big deal. And I was like, well, I mean, I've already been up over the ledge. Like, I don't want to go down the ledge and then get home and I'd be like, oh, well, now I got to go back. Mm-hmm. I already know that I would have gotten back to the camp. I say home, like, I live in Lake Placid now, got back to Draper's Acres campground and I would have regretted. So regret came in my brain and I was like, no regrets. And so looked over at Diane. I said, well, let's just keep going. And if there's another one, I'll decide then. Well, there wasn't another one. And then we were almost up to the peak. And then I started thinking, oh my God, I got to go down this thing. And it almost overtook me. It almost was too overwhelming to where I couldn't enjoy the peak. And that I was going to have to go down. And Diane was like, it's no big deal. We'll just find a different way. Just one step at a time. That's all you got to worry about. You don't have to worry about getting back to the car. It's not going to be nighttime anytime soon. And I know these things, but I couldn't think anything through. So I'm so glad she was there to like talk me through these things. And we ended up going out to the Balancing Rocks, which I almost refused to go out there. Mm-hmm. Just because I was it just overwhelmed me. And I just fear almost overtook me because I was just so fearful that everything I had done that led up to this moment for the recovery of this foot was just going to be gone if I slipped. Mm-hmm. And that's not the case. I mean, I could slip in your yard.
Yep.
It's like... I could have slipped today on Mount Van Hovenberg. Like, what am I going to do? Stop doing things that I love to do on a might? This might happen. And I think I texted you and I said, I'm not ready for the big boys.
And what did I say to you, though? What did I say to you when you sent me that text message?
You said you just need a couple of days off. You'll be fine.
And I said, you are ready for them. You've already hiked two mountains in one day that hike just like high peaks. So you overcame that, kind of challenge. And I think all of us who hike the mountains, like there's parts, especially in the high peaks, you're climbing up Cliff Mountain, you're climbing up Allen. You're climbing up the Saddleback Cliffs, even though I think climbing Cliff and Allen are way more difficult than the Saddleback Cliffs, but no one ever talks about those mountains. There's parts where it's like, it's legitimately nerve-wracking when you're climbing up it because you're like, what am I doing? This is so wild. People do this?
Well, that's what I was like.
People come down this? Yeah.
I did, in my brain, I was like, these women are so like, it was so awesome to be hiking with other women that are just like, I don't know if you cuss on here, badass hikers. And I was like, I'm experienced. I know how to hike. I know what to do. Why do I feel like I don't know what I'm doing? And I think it was just unfamiliar territory, a different kind of, this peak bagging is serious business. Mm-hmm. It just, not that I'm out of my wheelhouse, but I'm not comfortable because I don't know what I'm getting into. Maybe that's what it is. It's the unknown.
Yeah, sure. And if you were to start, I always tell people like, you're going to come up, You want to hike the high peaks? Do the Lake Placid Niner. By the end of the Niner, yeah, you're more than ready, more than capable to go climb the high peaks now, to start that journey, because you get a really good experience for Adirondack hiking on those mountains, and to kind of get an idea of the terrain, what the trails are like. Some are way better than others. Obviously, as I told you, Mount Joe's trail and that Van Hovenberg trail and the Cobble Hill trail, like, yeah, those are not like what you're going to experience in the high peaks. But Pitch Off, Hurricane, Catamount, which you haven't done yet, you're going to do Catamount this weekend. You climb up Catamount, you're good to go. Catamount has some sections that are going to make you go, oh, well, okay, let me figure this out. But you can know, people do this every day. Every day people are going up and down this. So you'll have that in your mind, but it is a different terrain. It is a totally different animal. And you see now, with your training program that I've had you on for the last 6 months, I have such an emphasis on strength training. And I know in the hiking world, people think, you don't need to get stronger and train and strength train and lift weights to go hike mountains. You just go hike mountains, or you just go running. And I disagree, for starters, just right off the bat. But also, this peak bagging thing, as you said, it is different than long distance backpacking.
You got to be ready to go as soon as you step out of the car. You're going up. It is elevation, whatever you want to call it, and you got to be ready.
And the muscles you're using are being obviously used in a different manner than if you're, doing a long distance backpacking trip. It's just different. And that's what we do here. That's why, quite frankly, Adirondack hikers have a little chip on their shoulder. They have a little swagger about when you climb here and you go elsewhere, because the trails here go up a drainage and they go straight up the damn mountain.
That's what I was trying to think. A drainage. I said a rock trough. Same thing. A southern version of a drainage. It is, I was like, I can hike New Hampshire now. That's no problem. Mm-hmm. Like, New Hampshire's no problem.
It's like Northeast hiking in general. It's got kind of that vibe. And the ADK though, it's like, it's one of those things where it is like a point of pride, the mountains here being so rugged and the trails being so rough. But it's one of those things where, it's a point of pride because it's hard, but ultimately it would be better if they were a little better, if the trails were a little bit better. But they are what they are, so it's what it is. But it does make it harder. Builds a little grit. It makes you a little tougher out there in the mountains. But that's kind of, it's part of the charm of the ADK high peaks and just the mountains here in general.
It's very hard to describe. In fact, Diane and I, when we were climbing up Pitch Off, I was like, I don't even know how to describe this to anybody. Like, a picture is not going to do it justice. Me trying to explain what the climbing is like around here is not going to do it justice. And if your legs aren't ready, there's no way. Mm-hmm. And I mean, compared to the ladies I was hiking with, I was like, I have work to do. And I say that in the greatest way. Because I want that grit. On the Appalachian Trail, a lot of Appalachian Trail hikers, you start in Georgia and you work your way to Maine, and there's a saying out there, the trail will get you in shape. Based on the terrain in the Southern Appalachians versus, going up Katahdin. And when you come to hike at the ADK, I don't know, you tell me. I mean, I've only been on 7 peaks, but you got to be ready when you get here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just a different exertion. It's a different type of beast. And that's why, on this podcast, I've said so many times, I grew up in this area. When you grow up here, like, you're just bound to hike mountains sometimes. But if you're not in shape to do it, it sucks. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. It's always a miserable experience. But when you are in shape, you're in climbing mountain shape, it's an absolutely unbelievable experience. It's like they're so polar opposite. But when you are ready, you've done the work to prepare your body, your mind, etc. It's amazing. It's just like it ignites your soul. But if you're not ready, it's miserable. And that's why so many people come up here, they'll hike once and be like, I hate that, I'm never doing it again. When in reality, if you just put in the work to, be in shape specifically for hiking, I mean, that's why I have, I help people do that specifically because it allows you to have better adventures. It allows you to enjoy the outdoors more. And then, what that does for your life, for your mind, for your psyche, for how you show up for people. Like when you have this like joy, and when you hear people talk about the mountains, especially here, it's honestly amazing. Like it gives me such a smile to hear people talk about the Adirondack Mountains, how they can't describe it, how much joy it brings them, and how much at home and peaceful they feel like in their heart. These are people from Western New York, from New York City, from all over that like don't live here. But this place, like the second they get here, it's like they decompress and they just have this smile. Like when you see parents watching videos of their kids and you look at them and they have this little smile on their face, but they don't realize they have a smile on their face because it's just so pure and natural. It's like the same thing. And it's honestly a beautiful thing. It's amazing to hear people talk about how much impact this park has on them, on how they are as a human. So because I know all of that, I've experienced it. I've had just countless messages from other people who experience the same thing. Well, then what am I supposed to do? I'm able to help you experience this, whether it's information about the trail, information about the mountains, or helping you physically get into the mountains, because that's just something I know about, that I'm good at. It's like I have a duty in a sense to help facilitate that so that people can experience that transformative power that it presents to people.
And it's exhilarating. I remember me, Shane, and Diane, the other badass ladies from Seek to Do More, last Saturday, we were on the last mountain, Mount Joe, and we all three, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like exhilarating. Like when you're climbing and you're just sweating to death and you look up and you have no idea how you're going to get to the top, but then you take another step and another step and another step, and the path presents itself. It's kind of like everything that you've done in the Seek to Do More program. You do the strengthening, you do, your protein, you do your water, you read every day, you learn something new every day, and you just chip away and you chip away and you chip away at it, and you do it at your own speed, and you do it and you turn around. Next thing you know, you're at the top and you're just like, holy cow, that was like totally exhilarating. And you get to the top and you're like, you forget that you were out of breath and you were sweating to death and you didn't know how the trail was going to go and how was the path going to get you there. It's just like, on January 1st, when I started the Seek to Do More program, I had no idea on July, whatever day it is, that I would be in the Adirondacks. Mm-hmm. But those steps every day, that one more step up to the top, that one more step, making sure you buy things that are nutritionally sound, making those decisions. And that's one of the main reasons that I love the Seek to Do More program, because it gives me a job every day. It gives me a set of standards. It gives me, something to thrive to when I'm at home and I'm having an average day and I get up and I go to work and I have all the things that everybody else has to do, in their daily life. But then I have myself at these standards and things that I have to meet on a daily basis. And there is no more, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll start that tomorrow. If I would have said January 1st, oh, I'll start that tomorrow. Oh, I'll do that next month. Oh, I'll think about that in April, I would not be here climbing these mountains in the Adirondack Park. And that is why when, I was on the Appalachian Trail just 2 weeks ago, I was like, I've got to go. We're too close. I need to go meet James.
For starters, I appreciate all of those kind things you said about my program. It's been fantastic having you in it and seeing the wins that you're doing. And yes, it's amazing that you're actually up here, because I wouldn't have thought either that in 6 months we're finally going to meet in person. We're going to get to go hiking. We're going to get to do a podcast. So it's awesome. And I appreciate those, nice things you said about it. And I'm glad that it's been impactful for you in your own journey. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about, to have you here in studio, is because I think your story is something that I know a lot of listeners of mine would benefit from, is the podcast that you did about your 10-day local challenge. I want you to tell people a little bit about that, because these are 10 episodes of a podcast where Julie, as she told you earlier in the episode, that she basically came to me to help because she had a foot surgery, and you have foot surgery, you can't move, you could put on some weight, life goes downhill, and you find yourself in a place you don't want to be, but then it's time to, you took action to change that. But those 10 episodes you did of what we called the Jester's Redemption Section Hike, the podcast itself, it's better than a movie, because every episode is one day of the story continuing and to literal redemption. So also I want to say, before I have her talk a little bit about that, I want to say, go add that to your queue for starters, to download those 10 episodes. But B, Julie's theme music is arguably the best music of any hiking podcast. You are not going to put her podcast on, hear that theme music, and not have the biggest smile on your face. Like, I feel like I need to listen to that. And then your voice, like you have that nice Southern accent. You're very nice to listen to. It's like, this actually decompresses me. And the music itself, like I could just listen to it on repeat. But tell us a little bit about Jester's Redemption Section Hike, because again, I was so amazed at what you did. I was so happy that it's in a podcast and it's in a story start to finish, because anyone that listens to the 46 of 46 podcast knows I put out a story of my own from start to finish. I want to tell my 46er journey, start to finish. That's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to say bye-bye to the podcast, enjoy it. And then here I am 5 years later talking to you. I have a whole room that's dedicated to this business that I do, this crazy thing that started because I told a story about hikes that I did, and I happen to know a little bit about audio, and it's honestly amazing at what things kind of snowball into. But tell us about your recent challenge. Give us the background on it, and then what it was, because I seriously am just so amazed at what you put together.
So we should probably back up. Part of the Seek to Do More program is you follow things in increments. And what I mean by that is you have your first 30 days. And to me, the first 30 days, you call it the recalibration.
Yep.
And for me, it was, okay, let me get used to this. Let's start this. Let's figure things out. And day one hit, and I got this text message, and it was from you. And I don't exactly remember what the day one message was, but I was so impressed. I was like, oh, I'm already getting encouragement day one. Okay, does this continue day 2, 3, 4 throughout? Yes, it does. So the first 30 days is a recalibration. You're getting used to the program. You're getting used to, completing your 7 commitments every day for the first 30 days. Then you move on to the next set of 30 days, which will bring you to the 60-day point. And the next set of 30 days is, okay, I'm figuring this out, we're moving and grooving, and now you get into this strength phase. You focus on being stronger, not only physically, but mentally, spiritually, how you do things. Be stronger, around the people that you impact the most at work, at home, your family, in various areas. And that's when I tried to quit right after the first 30 days. I did try to quit the program. I didn't want to be honest about that at first, but that was part of the deal. And James coached me through that. I'll be honest. I sent James an email and I said, hey, listen, I think I'm good. And I honestly really wasn't expecting to hear back from you. Because that's what I've experienced in the past. Anybody that coached me, hey, they got their money, they're good. Boom, move on to another client. But you emailed me back and you said, hey, let's have our call anyway. And I was like, oh no. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to bail on that. Maybe we'll talk for like 5 minutes and then it'll be good. But that coaching call, you were really a coach, not just, a physical coach, but you were a mental coach for me, because the number one thing that I always did on myself is I will quit on myself. And then, try to move on to the next thing that would help me lose weight or the next thing that would help me get stronger. And you really coached me through not quitting on myself. And honestly, I want to thank you for that as well, because I wouldn't be sitting here if I would have quit on myself after the first 30 days. So then you go through this strength phase. And then the last 30 days, which will get you to the 90-day point of the program, you want people to do a challenge. And that really coincided with my spring break, because I am an educator. I teach high school. And I was like, I've got 10 days off. What if I stayed home and didn't travel anywhere and just did something out in my local nature preserve? And I think you and I had a conversation. And I think at first it was like, well, let's try to do 3 miles a day out on the trails for 10 days. And I was like, well, nobody cares about 3 miles. What about 5? And then we talked about 7. And 5 seemed to be the good, equalizer. Okay, go out at your local nature preserve, wherever, I hike, or used to hike all the time, because I should back up because I'm getting excited. Up to this point, I had really not been out on trails, maybe once a week for the program on Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday was your hike day because that's what brings you joy. That's where you want to be. You're here in the program working with me for hiking specific purposes. So it's like, great, we got to get you out on the trail. We got to get you out where you can go. Wherever you live, there's always places to hike. You don't always need to go to mountains. There's always places to hike. Julie lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there's places to hike even in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. But yeah, continue.
That's right. So I just kind of I didn't want to travel. I didn't want to go to Western North Carolina because I still didn't trust what I could do. Mm-hmm. And so we settled on my challenge after 90 days was going to be hike 5 miles a day for 10 days. And then I don't even know how we came up with a name because we were going, I think you ended up calling it Jester's Redemption Section Hike. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
Because that's what it was. It was you've had this injury that sidelined you, surgery. You're unsure and not confident about your own kind of physical capabilities on the trail. And that's why we've been training in the way that we were training. You bought a trap bar because I said, hey, I think we should have you get a trap bar. Yeah, don't worry. You'll be back to it soon. But we said, okay, we got to get you strong so you can get back into the mountains. That's where you want to be. So that's what we're going to do. So it really was like, it was a redemption section hike. Like it's Julie's redemption now. You're getting back to doing the things you want to do. It's the culmination of the work you've been putting in. So there really was no better word for it. It's exactly what it needed to be. And I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah, it was great. And so, we talked back and forth. I have this podcast.
Which is fantastic. Check it out.
People, I was like, I don't know if I want to. One of the things I love to do on the podcast is I really like to podcast from the trail. And I know that's how you started your podcast. And I think we bounced back and forth. I said, I have not recorded from the trail in a couple years. I just haven't been able to, be out and hike. And you were like, no, you have to do this. You need to do this for yourself. And I was like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, boom, day one, I went out. I was like, all right, I'll record. And I think the first episode, day one, is like 10 or 11 minutes. It is just me at my local nature preserve. I think I'll have to listen to it again. It was only in April, what I said on day one. And really what went down, so I think it was March 31st or March 30th, and I put the episode out the very next day. And that very next day, when I was actually out hiking day 2, my phone started blowing up. And people were like, oh my gosh, you're out on the trail. And it was just all these messages from people. And if you listen to the episodes, I got many, many, many emails of people telling me their stories and what's taken them off the trail, and thanking me for being very honest. And I was very honest and raw, and I don't even know if I want to go back and listen to it. I have not listened to it since those episodes. I did make it its own podcast because I wanted it to kind of stand alone, just those 10 episodes, so people could go listen.
Which is?
Jester's Redemption Section Hike.
So look up Jester's Redemption Section Hike. Jester, Jester, Jester's Redemption Section Hike podcast. That's where you'll find all 10 episodes.
Yeah, you can listen to them back to back.
I'm your hype man.
Yeah, you are.
Because I'm such a big fan of what you did. I like a good story, right? Like, why did I, before we even continue with you telling about the unbelievable impact that it had.
Oh my goodness.
Why I was so adamant about you telling this story because, and I said that to you, I said, you're going to want this story for you. Trust me. Because, I know you weren't sure about, do I want to deal with editing stuff? Do I want to deal with recording out there? And I said, don't put any rules on it. Just press record, start talking. If you want to talk once, talk once. If you want to talk 3 times, talk 3 times. No rules, because later when you want to go back to it, you'll be so happy that it is chronicled. For me, my 46er journey is recorded. In fact, it's written. In fact, it's going to be in a book coming out next year. Like, the fact that I have it makes me emotional. I have chills now.
I know, I do too.
The fact that my story is logged is so amazing for nobody but myself, because I went on that journey. That was my adventure. And I said to you, you're gonna want this recorded so that you can go back to it. And I encourage anybody doing any adventure, the amount of good that comes out of logging what you've done, unbelievable. Even if you're climbing the high peaks, go buy one of those high peak journal books that you can buy, write notes, toss it in your end table or your table next to your bed. What do we call that? Like a nightstand. Toss it in a nightstand. And then a year from now, you're going to pick it up. You're going to be like, what was my hike up like the Santanoni Range? And you're going to read it. And you're like, oh my God, that's right. That was so awesome. I'm so glad this exists. I'm just a big believer in being able to relive stories that are impactful, that are going to be impactful. But anyways, continue. So you put out episode 1. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to hammer and highlight that. Day 1, you put the episode out, and immediately I also knew, and I told you this later.
Yeah, you did.
I told you this later.
People are going to respond. I was like, no one cares about this.
Idea. You have no idea how impactful it's going to be for other people. And I actually want to press pause again. I'm going to press pause again, Julie. You wait. The reason that I was so adamant about not letting you off the hook to record this and to make it happen is because I knew the impact this was going to have on other people. And you saw it on day 1 because you overcame something. So how many people who listen to podcasts, who listen to this right now, who are dealing with an injury and they can't do X, Y, and Z, which is what they love to do. Like, it brings them so much joy, but they can't do it. And they're so down on themselves, like they'll never get back. We'll use the trail as an example. They feel like they're never going to be able to get back to their old self, or, let's say they put on 50 pounds, 100 pounds, and they're like, I'll never get back to who I used to be. And it crushes them. It kills them. Well, if you have done the seemingly impossible, you had this surgery, you put on all this weight, and now we've lost, your backpack in weight, your foot is strong as hell now. You've gotten yourself back. Like, you fought and scratched and clawed your way back. And now look, you're back doing the things that you wanted to do. Like, you took action by A, reaching out to me, B, committing to yourself to follow through with this desire. You put in the work, and what do you know? You're getting the results that you wanted by doing the work,
here I am
by
in the
betting on yourself.
Park.
And here you are in the ADK, the greatest place on the planet. And I knew if you don't tell this story, you're actually, and I told you this, I said, you have a responsibility to other people who are going to have an impact from what you're doing. Like they're going to hear this and be so inspired by you because you're just an everyday person, just like me. And look, you have the same everyday problems that they have, but you overcame it. Whoa, talk about true inspiration, not like BS Hollywood fake inspiration, like legitimate, real human being impact. So it was about you partially, but like in the back of my head, I said, this is going to help so many people. And day one, talk about the explosion that you had on social media.
It exploded. My email exploded, and people were pouring their own stories out to me personally. So strangers. And so day 2, day 3, I started reading those while I was walking on the trail and talking about what I was going through. And I would just throw it out there that, hey, so-and-so reached out to me, and everybody said, yeah, read it. Go ahead. And then everything just started snowballing. And I do want to back up. So day 1, you sent me a separate audio message on the morning that I was going to start the challenge. And I was like,
you had to hear from your coach on day 1, right?
This is like unbelievable. And then I remember I reached out to you and I said, I just want to open the show with this. Like day 1, it just needs to open with, and it ended up just working beautifully. And by the day 3, 4, 5, people were doing the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Impact. You had an impact on people.
All of a sudden, I had people emailing me, I'm on day 2 of Jester's challenge. And I was like, what? Like, this is the thing. So by the time I ended the challenge, there were probably 10 people that were on their own challenge. Hey, I started the challenge. I'm doing 5 miles in my own nature preserve. Or, hey, I started the challenge. I'm doing this around my neighborhood. Or I remember Catherine, another badass woman in the Seek to Do More program. She's like, I didn't even know I had a nature preserve in my area. I am out now hiking 5 miles in my own nature preserve. So it really turned into people were sending me their, oh my gosh, like I haven't been able to hike in like 6 weeks, or I have this injury, or, whatever was going on in their life. Like some of the emails were people were experiencing depression. They were going through their own mental health. Then it turned into, well, I'm doing the challenge and I'm doing the challenge. And one of my really good friends, RVA Hiker Girl, she was dealing with an injury. So she was hiking one day and then biking the next day 5 miles. And that's how, she started the challenge. And then another friend of mine was like, well, I'm going to start the challenge. And then all of a sudden by the end of it, people were doing the challenge. And then okay, so the first third was people were sending me emails. The next third were, oh my gosh, people are doing the challenge. And then the last third, if I had to wrap it up, was people started telling me who listened to the podcast, oh my gosh, your voice. I could hear you're happy again in your voice. I started getting messages from people saying, you're back, welcome back. And I never stopped the podcast. Mm-hmm. But I guess people could tell my heart wasn't in it during some of my episodes. And now I've had people that I've met, went down to NC Trail Days after the challenge. It just happened, NC Trail Days in Damascus, Virginia, the third weekend in May. And I was meeting people and they were like, oh my gosh, like, you now from like even a year ago or 2 years ago when you were in it, like your voice, like I've had people say, now I'm listening to your show again. Like you're so inspirational, and I'm almost embarrassed. Like I don't feel inspirational. Mm-hmm. So it just got, I don't want to say out of control is not good. It was awesome. And then I was like, how am I going to go back to work? Like these 10 days turned into something just so huge, and people trusting me. They don't know me by sending me these emails saying, I'm going through major depression. 2022, 2023 got away from me too. I've gained 40 pounds. I think you have a client now that came from the show that was listening to that. And he has now come over. I think he's doing Seek to Do More. And that it's just like now that impact, going from this 90-day challenge. And one of the things too that I really openly talked about in that challenge was my relationship with God and my spirituality, which is part of the Seek to Do More program. And I've never talked about that before on my podcast because it's a hiking podcast.
Sure.
And I started talking about I don't know where I would be without my spirituality, because when I got really low, that's what I turned to. And that's what helped me get out of this situation and lead me to the surgeon that corrected my foot, the physical therapist that, spent 7-8 months with me in physical therapist, to you who you're a man of God yourself. So me getting on my knees saying I need help led me to a surgeon who believes in God, a physical therapist who believes in God, you believe in God, me talking about God, and then other people responding like, I love that you're talking about your spirituality. I love that you are giving us more of you, because the reality of it is we're just people. And, we have these niche podcasts and people want to hear more from us because they're used to hearing us in their ears. It's intimate. And it just became, and it's still continuing. I still get messages, not like I did those 10 days by any means, of thank you. And, it's like you almost feel embarrassed talking about it. But it's such a large part of my life now. I can't go back after these 6 months.
Yep. No, it's been absolutely amazing. I felt like a proud parent while I was watching you do day after day after day. And I should say that when Julie did this hike, she was putting out, so you did, let's say like you hiked day one. Day one's episode came out the following day.
Yes.
And then you were on the trail for day two. And then day two's episode came out while you were on the trail for day three. So like these came out in real time.
Yeah, like back to back to back. Yeah.
Me, I'm a fan.
You were in there.
It. I'm living the 10-day journey with you. Like for those 10 days, the women in Seek to Do More said the same thing, that your fans, like it became part of our schedule for those 10 days. Like we're going to check in. She's hiking 5 miles a day for 10 days. Her first time back to the trail post this foot injury. Julie's a backpacker, right? We all know that's what she does. So she hikes day after day after day. This was her redemption hike. And that's why I just wanted to talk about it on this podcast, because it's a great freaking story. It's a story about hiking, and how many people that listen to this podcast who feel like they have an injury, or they've let themselves go in this or that, or they feel like they're never going to be able to get back to doing the things they love to do here in the outdoors. Well, you are walking proof that all it takes is saying you're going to make a change, finding a way to a plan, and just executing. That's it. And here you are. Now you're finishing up round 2 of the AT. You're hiking in the Adirondacks for the first time ever. You're climbing mountains, doing things you've never done before. And 6 months ago, you hadn't been in the woods in how long? Like it is a true inspirational story, which is why I had to. Yeah,
6 months ago, Adirondacks were not in my vocabulary.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. And that's why I wanted to highlight that, because I like a good outdoors story, and that is a good outdoors story. I understand I had something to do with it, but I was just listening as a fan because you're doing it day after day. I'm not doing the hikes. Yeah, I knew about what was going on, but like I couldn't wait to listen to each episode to see like, how did it go yesterday? You know, we didn't get on the phone after because I want to hear it in the podcast. I want to hear how it went. It's awesome stuff.
No, I think we texted. I said, well, I'm at home eating now. I mean, pretty much. And then you were like, eat lots of protein, recover so you can get back out there tomorrow. Awesome stuff. But anyways, it has been absolutely phenomenal getting to finally meet you in person, in person. We've talked for so many years. You have your podcast. I've listened to you so many times. In fact, I know which wall on my house during 2020 when I was painting my house, I know which walls I was painting while I listened to your podcast. We go way back. So it's exciting to finally get to introduce you to these mountains that I've been talking about and telling you about for so long. Like, there's something special out here. There's something mysterious. And even you're hiking the Lake Placid Niner, how, it's almost overwhelming when you start to realize like, holy crap, I need like a lifetime to experience everything there is to experience here. And yeah, that's exactly true. People say to me all the time, when are you going to go over and do some episodes from some other place? You're always doing these Adirondack episodes. I say, never. Why would I? There's a lifetime to experience here. I also travel for work, so I don't want to travel for fun too. But there is a lifetime of adventure to have literally right around where I live. And you're experiencing that for the first time. So it's awesome. It's been fantastic. So as we start to wrap up this episode, I want to ask you the same 3 questions that I ask everybody else. Question number 1. What is something unique that you always have in your backpack when you go hiking? It's got to be unique to you. There's no wrong answer, but what's like a fun thing that you always have to have in your pack when you're out on the trail? Oh, goodness. You're putting me on the spot. So.
Also, hold on one second. I don't know if you all can hear the helicopters over my shed quarters right now, but the helicopter is heading into the high peaks right now. In that direction. So who knows? All right. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
So one thing that I always have, and I'll even, two of the ladies said something as we were hiking. I always have a bandana on the front of my backpack, and it's a safety bandana. So it has the 10 essentials, it has leave no trace, and it has, if you get bit by a bee, what to do. It has all these things all over this bandana. What you can do if you get in trouble, what you can do if you think you're lost on trail. And I just never, ever hike without it. So I always have the orange in front of me, and it's always good too. If I need to wave it or if somebody needs to see me, they can see me coming. So it's always good to have something orange in the backcountry. And a couple of ladies I was hiking with said, I never thought about putting a bandana on the front of my pack. And I said, yeah, it's a great sweat rag too. So
a lot of options that you can use that bandana with. A lot of opportunity. Awesome. Now, second question. In your opinion, now that you've experienced this place for the very first time, you've ridden the bobsled track roller coaster.
No, that was something else. Oh my gosh. I felt like I was 10 years old. It was awesome.
You've ridden the coaster. You've hiked the mountains. You've been up Van Hovenberg like 16 times because you were staying at Draper's Acres and the trailhead is like right across the street, basically. What makes the Adirondack Park, from your experience right now, a unique place?
Oh my goodness. Very first impression, I'm closing my eyes now because I could remember it vividly driving here. The air is clean. You can smell the pines. As soon as you get here, there's a mystery because when you drive in off of exit 30 and you start entering, I don't know when you enter the Adirondack Park, but when you start seeing the lake and you start smelling the pines and you start seeing the trees, and all of a sudden you kind of feel engulfed in these mountains. And I just remember not being able to feel the lay of the land. Like I just needed to get in it. Like I needed to get in the mountain. And I don't think I've ever had that feeling pulling up anywhere. And when you get into the mountain, it's just they're magical. Very hard to describe. The hiking is, and I've done very minimal hiking, so I don't want anybody to think like, I haven't done a true high peak. And that is why I have to come back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. 100%.
And I did fly in a plane.
Oh, that's right. You did. Yes, right. You did the high peaks flight.
Yeah, I've done all the touristy things. I've had ice cream. I've eaten pizza.
You went in a body of water.
Yes, went into the falls. What were they?
Roaring Brook Falls.
Roaring Brook Falls. I sat in the pool of water for quite some time. Drank water. Uh-oh.
Another helicopter headed towards the high peaks. Who knows?
That one's close.
Yeah. Oh, well. We'll find out. But yeah, I love that you said that there's a mystery to the Adirondacks, because that is pretty much the word I use to describe it as well, because there's just something about these mountains. Like, there's a story to tell, and we're never going to find it. And I love that about it. I love that about these mountains. You're never going to be able to figure them out. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
I will say the people that I've met, the ladies that I've hiked with, yourself, the enthusiasm about the mountains and sharing the mountains is very contagious. And people are very prideful of what is here, and they want to show it off. And I'm very thankful for that, because I feel like I've had personal guides since I've been here. And there is a mystery, and I want to come back to the mystery. I'm not done here.
Oh no, you're a teacher. You got summers off. You can take a trip up here. This will be a thing that you do every summer now. Plus sides, you got to start the high peaks. And then once you start, even though I wish we could do one high peak so that you're officially started, then you have to come back. But yeah, once you start, it'll quickly become something that grabs hold of you. But awesome. And my final question is a more generic and broad question. Why do you hike? Why do you go in the woods? Why do you do these long backpacking trips? What is it about doing this thing out in the woods in nature that is hard, that no one makes you do, but yet you keep coming back for more and more and more? Why do you hike?
That's not easy. That's a tough question. It has multiple layers, but the number one reason that I love to hike is, no matter what trail you're on, each trail is very unique and has its own unique qualities. But for me, I just get a sense of my mind just becomes very clear. I become in tune with what's around me. Like here in the Adirondacks, the smell, like it just smells so clean. That's the only way I can describe it. And when you're climbing the mountain and you're in the pines and you're just engrossed into that mountain, that trail, I just love becoming part of nature, and clearing my mind of all the garbage that enters it from working, from people, from day-to-day life. And when you go into the woods, probably the best way to say it is the mountain doesn't care about you. And you say that all the time. And the mountain doesn't care about you, but we care about the mountains, and we care about nature. And even the other day, I was like, earlier, even on this podcast, like it's just a feeling of exhilaration that you get when you work hard, when you climb, when you don't think you can get to the top, when you don't think you can see your route. That is what I love. The exhilaration. I don't get it from anything. Maybe that coaster down at Mount Vancouver.
That'll ignite your soul just like the mountains do.
There's nothing that ignites, that's the best way to put it. There is nothing that ignites my soul more than walking and hiking and getting out deep into the woods, where it's just nothing but you and you have to overcome, just like I had to overcome on pitch off. There you go. I wasn't even really, James has a shirt on that says overcome. And doing hard things.
That's it.
It's easy to sit on the couch. It's easy to go buy a bag of chips. There are a lot of things that are so easy. And when I couldn't hike, the number one thing I wanted to do was go out and hike and do something hard, exhilarating, sweat. Everything that comes with it, see a bear. I haven't seen any animals here. I need to add, where are the animals?
Dude, there are no animals here except birds, toads, and squirrels.
That's not true. They're here. They're somewhere.
They're somewhere, but they claim they're somewhere. They claim we have black bears here in the Adirondacks, but I've had things in my garbage, but I've yet to see the black bear, and I've definitely never seen a black bear out in the woods. Ever.
Not ever?
I'm dying to see a bear out there.
Oh my god.
We have spiders too. You'll get one to the face every so often.
Yeah, so I've seen deer here. So you have deer.
No, I'm making a joke. Those are the only animals to see.
But yeah, have you never actually ever seen a black bear?
Not here in the Adirondacks.
What about moose?
I've never seen a moose. We do have moose.
They're here.
Yeah, but I've never seen one. I've never had the pleasure. I actually, of course, we have deer. Remember, I told you I hit one 3 days ago.
Yeah, boo. And you do. I know you hunt. So, is there bear hunting in the Adirondack Park? No. Okay, there's a bear season.
No, there's bear here. I mean, they're here. I just have never had the pleasure.
Well, there's so much. That's the thing too about the Adirondack. I'm learning. I'm in the learning. I'm in very, 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 very early stages of learning about the Adirondack Park. And
2.5 times the size of Yellowstone.
That's what, yes. And there's so much uninhibited land versus mountains you can walk on. Mm-hmm. Or where there are trails or troughs or what'd you call them? Rock.
Drainages.
Drainages.
There's trails, but like if you think about like what is a trail on a mountain, it's like 0.0000001% of the mountain, you know. And it's a pretty spectacular place. Fantastic. Well, Julie, it's been absolutely amazing finally getting you up to the 80K. I hope everyone listening to this episode enjoyed this podcast. Go check out her podcast, the Jester Section Hiker Podcast. She does a great job over there. And she's been doing this as long as I have. And I can assure you the podcast grind is a grind. So I have my hats off to you for continuing to do it. Even on when the times when you didn't really feel like doing it, you didn't feel like you were out on the trail and you were able to still keep it going. And now you have rejuvenated it in your life. So it's awesome to see. It's been great to see you go from, I really need to get back to the trail to not only being back on the trail, but absolutely crushing it and experiencing and doing new things that you never did before. So it's been an honor for me to get to watch that from you. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to watch you do that.
Well, thank you, James. I appreciate you inviting me. This has been spectacular.
Glad to hear it. Next summer, same thing, except we're going to hit some high peaks next summer.
Indeed.
All right. So, Julie, where can people find you online?
Instagram, Jester Section Hiker, YouTube, Julie Gayheart, the podcast, your favorite podcast app, Jester Section Hiker. If you want to listen specifically to the 10 episodes, Jester's Redemption Section Hike, you can find those on your favorite podcast app as well.
Fantastic. That'll do it for this week of the 46 of 46 podcast. Time to call it a day on this summit session. Thank you to Julie for coming by to the studio here at Shed Quarters to listen or to chat with me all about her story so I could hear all about it in person. And thank you all for listening to this episode of the 46 of 46 podcast. Head over to 46outdoors.com. Check out everything that I offer there. You can head over to seektodomore.com if you want to hear a little bit more about what I do with people like Julie to help you get trail ready for both the mountains and for life, if that's something that's of interest to you. But check back on Fridays, everyone, for new mountains, new stories, new guests, and new episodes right here on the 46 of 46 podcast. I hope you're getting up to the Adirondacks this summer because now is the time to be here. But that'll do it. Remember to leave no trace, do the rock walk, and if you carry it in, carry it out. See you on the trails. Hey everyone, it's James. Thanks for listening to this episode. And because my dozens of podcast listeners turned clients have always been asking me why I never talk about Seek to Do More here on this podcast, I decided, okay, fine. So if you value being strong in the mountains and you value being strong in your life, I would like to invite you to join my private Facebook group called Seek to Do More. So Seek to Do More is a platform that I founded a few years ago where I help hikers build strength and resilience for the backcountry and beyond, because it's awesome to be strong in the mountains, but it's more awesome to be strong in every aspect of your life. So if you want to have better adventures in the mountains and you simultaneously want to become the strongest version of yourself, I encourage you to come join my private community called Seek to Do More. You know, you've heard me talk all about how the mountains have a lot to teach us if we listen. So what I do with Seek to Do More is I help people experience those lessons by preparing them for the trail and preparing them for life. So when they get on the trail, they can hear those messages and apply those lessons they'll learn in their everyday life. So head over to Facebook, find Seek to Do More, or on Instagram. We're there too. But come give it a follow. Come join the community. You'll connect with fellow backcountry adventurers from all over the country. You'll gain some mountain and training tips, build nice camaraderie, and you'll gain inspiration from everyday people working to become a little bit better every single day as they seek to do more in their own lives. So if you like this podcast and what I'm saying resonates with you, I'd love to have you join the Facebook group and be a part of the movement to seek to do more. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Instagram.